The following episode most likely contains graphic language, details of violence, and murder, and may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 58 of Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my sleepy, tired bus driving mother. Sorry, we've been away for a while, longer than we expected. I'm sure all of our regular listeners are used to our hiatuses that we often take.
Yeah, they're used to our personalities that, you know, we mean well.
We do, but again, remember everybody, this is like a fun, no pressure, when shit hits the fan in life.
And right now, the fucking fan is stuck in it.
It's completely covered in shit at this moment, actually. But, you know, between the last month of summer and Mom, as you guys know, she's the manager of a bus company, and they are striking. So Mom is wearing couple hats.
All the hats.
Now you guys love when I say how many hats you're wearing. So.
And also, I mean, you have more of an excuse than I do because I don't even have kids to get back to school.
Yeah, so that also happened, and I've been to 45 weddings in the last month. I swear to God. That's nothing new, though. Marry a Latin. That's what will happen to you.
Yeah, they like to get married, I guess.
They do. There's a lot of them, too, so...
Yeah, you have. I think I see everybody had quite a busy wedding season.
Mm-hmm.
I know another friend of mine only went to 4 this summer.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
What's your number?
Actually, it's not as high as I'm thinking. It's because I'm still thinking about the ones from last year.
Oh.
I still got PTSD from those ones. But yeah, I think it's been 5.
Yeah, that's still quite
And then we
a
have
few.
one next month. I actually leave in 2 days for a bachelorette party in Arizona, so that should be fun. But yeah.
And I'm off on my belated honeymoon. Also, I'm off on I'm leaving on Thursday.
Mm-hmm. We're leaving the same day.
Yeah.
Quesadilla's 15th birthday.
Oh.
I know. So... But you know what? That's kind of a good segue because right now we don't have very many current events. Again, our current events is what you guys just got. Our life is in fucking turmoil. But
the house is on fire.
Well, my fridge crapped out. Just pretty much everything that could happen happened. So we're here with no current events. But
I think the moon is in fucking Mercury or something.
It's somewhere. It's in Uranus. I don't know where it is, but it's in my anus. I don't know what's going on.
It's in someone's anus.
It is because it's shit. So,
yes. Well,
but to segue from weddings, yeah, I know it was maybe not a good choice, but the episode that we are covering today, the case that we're covering in this episode, is obviously going to be horrible because it's Murder with My Mother, and you guys already know what to expect, but. Usually when you think of a wedding, you think of a nice celebration of love and, you know, and two people coming together and families coming together. And the episode that we are covering actually is set in a time where someone is getting married. Someone does get married and then that sours and they decide to take out all of their, what would you say? Resentment.
Yeah, I think the person, I mean, as you guys will hear, I think it went beyond resentment.
Oh, yeah. But I mean,
into murder.
Yes, into murder. And not even just murder. The case that we're covering today is actually Canada's 3rd largest massacre. So I think it might even be 4th now because this did happen in 1996. But still, for that much time to have gone by and it still to be one of the most heinous murders in our history is really telling. Obviously, like other country, I guess, we are not a country that hears as much about massacres as somewhere like the United States of America. You know, it's kind of sad because now you don't even hear about them anymore. They happen so often down there.
In the U.S., it's completely just commonplace.
Yeah, which obviously says a lot about mental illness, access to guns, obviously, and as you'll see in this episode, even people in countries where you think you're safe and, you know, the gun laws are a little more strict, things tend to get through, and it's just...
Yeah, I mean, all it takes is one person not doing their job properly, or, you know, people can buy guns no matter what.
Mm-hmm. But it's the type of guns, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously we know guns do damage to people, but when you have a gun that doesn't shoot as many bullets at one time, obviously, yes, you can still do damage, but the destruction is not usually as, what is the word? Large?
Yeah, as vast.
As vast, yeah.
Look at me and my thesaurus month
Yeah,
today.
God. Well, my brain is literally, I think I left it in the car. So hopefully you guys have a really fun time listening to this episode.
My brain got left at Handy Dart today.
Yeah, maybe actually on last week it got left there. So we will jump right into this episode, and obviously what we're rambling right now will make a little more sense.
So the Gakhal family was a family that moved to Canada from the Indian state of Punjab. The village was named after the family. And am I pronouncing the name right? I think so.
I think so.
Gakhal. The village was named Gakhal for the family. And the parents, Darshan and Karnal, married in the 60s in India.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you see that a lot, right? A lot of people at that time in the 70s, there was a lot of immigration from India to Canada.
Yeah, it's when it first started, actually, because they changed some of the laws. Before that, there wasn't a lot of people from Southeast Asia moving here.
Because they weren't allowed, essentially, right?
So when that happened, when it opened up, I mean, this family was actually doing well in India. They had land and a town named after them, and the father, Karnal, he realized that there would be more opportunity if he came to Canada for education for his children, his future children, and more financial opportunities, just more opportunities in general.
Well, we've discussed this multiple times with multiple episodes, because Canada is a place of, you know, it's not the American dream, but Canada is we're welcoming. We're kind of like a multicultural mixing pot, right? There's so many different cultures in Canada that we are known as like a multicultural country.
And I love that about our country.
Yeah, and you see so many families in these cases that are immigrants that come to Canada because they don't just want their children to have this basic education, have to work, you know, their lives away on a farm or doing something like this. They want to give their kids a great education, and maybe they'll have to pay $1 bajillion for it. But coming to Canada, they can, you know, give their children these educations, give them these lives, make more of themselves, and eventually, you know, be successful. And
the opportunity, if you're a hard worker here, is, I mean, it's unlimited, really.
We've also talked about how hard immigrants work, because it is extremely hard. So
it is, yeah. So they had children, 3 daughters, before they actually moved here from India. Jasbir, Rajwa, and Balvinder. So Kalvinder decided to move to Canada, and he decided that he would come first because it was the easiest way for them to immigrate. So he would come first, and then he would send for his wife and his children once he came and he got settled and did the application process from here.
Yeah, so the potential immigrants were allowed into Canada from India in 1967, and in 1970 he decided that he would leave and go first, and obviously the plan was for his family to follow him there. So when he first came here, he moved to the Okanagan. So he was living in Vernon, where he picked fruit in an orchard, and obviously he struggled being one of the first Indian immigrants to come here, because think about it, you know.
people weren't used to people from other countries as much, and there was so much racism, and so people weren't paid properly, and they weren't treated properly, and they weren't housed properly.
No, and they were really discriminated against because they were so different, and especially if you think about someone who is, I think it's called a Sardar family, which is where you're a Sikh family and you wear a turban, right? That in itself is just such a different thing than people of, I would say no culture, like Canadians. Like, obviously we have culture, but people who are not used to that, they are obviously very ignorant to the fact that that is something of a religious symbol, right? And it means so much to these people, as religion does.
It's so deep. Like, the whole Sikh religion is such a, it has so much meaning. And I grew up in a small town in the island where, I think I've said this before, we had like one family from India, one black person, and so anything different, I would say that everybody shittily targeted, and like it was a racist place, and it was all based out of ignorance.
Of course. So in the early 1900s, a lot of South Asians had actually immigrated to Canada. It was open for a while, and then they closed it. And then in 1967, they had opened it back up. So when the earliest immigrants came here from Southeast Asia, they opened a lot of sawmills. Sawmills, I guess there's a lot in India. It's kind of like reminiscent to, they kind of came here because think of the farms in India. Here we have a lot of farmland. We have a lot of like rich soil, not probably anymore, but
a lot of forests. Probably also not.
Yes, anymore. Probably not anymore. But that was something that they kind of were drawn to because they were good at it. Like we said, they're very hard workers, and mill work is not easy, right? It's very labor intensive. It is. You're working really long hours, but he would actually work at the mill and then still, after his shift at the mill, go work part-time at the orchard.
Just like me right now.
Yeah. Mom is driving the bus from like 4 a.m. to 1 o'clock, and then she's going and working in the office, which is really fun.
But no, I can't imagine how he kept that up for years, because he worked so much, and he didn't have his family here. Yeah. So he just put all of his effort into making money for when they came. So he was able to buy a duplex for the family.
In 1974.
So that's, 4 years. And then it was so cute because he did not want to live in the duplex.
Until his family got there. I know. So cute. And think about that. You're in a new country. You don't have your family. You don't have friends. I'm sure he was able to make some friends and the mill or in the orchard or wherever he was, and that's 4 years, and it's not like today, right? You could FaceTime somebody today. You can, then it was like letters. Snail mail, right? Yeah. And so it was probably really, really important to him for when his family came here to be special for them, and
for him too.
Exactly.
So when they came, or before they came, he was just renting a room off of someone. Like he was saving.
It sounds like he was never even there.
Penny. I don't think
because
he was there.
He literally worked 24 hours a day.
I don't know if how he even got by, because I'm tired right now after 2 weeks.
God. So finally in 1974, he sponsored his family to come join him in Canada. So like we've discussed, he was from a Sikh religion. So the family was practicing Sikhs, and I know some people are like, it's Sikh. No, dude, that's the white way to say it. It's Sikh. I've asked multiple people who are Sikh, and it is Sikh. So after that, the population started to grow. A lot of Southeast Asians started coming in, like so many people started immigrating to Canada because it was starting to get obviously more normalized for people to come and follow their dreams and give their families all these lives that they're wanting to give them.
Well, and here too, in British Columbia, we have a temperate climate. It's beautiful. And
don't go to Alberta.
Yeah. A lot of people, I think everyone from the Philippines basically moved to Winnipeg.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So at least these guys came, and they, were in the Okanagan, which does have cold winters. And I'm sure it was probably pretty shocking depending on which part of India they're from.
Yeah.
But, what a great place to come to, really.
Yeah. And because of the large population was growing, right, of Sikh people in the area. So in 1979, the family actually founded the Okanagan Sikh Temple. And then a couple years later, they had Kalvinder, who was their fourth daughter, Harvinder, who was their fifth daughter, and they had one son named Jaspal. And then eventually, as it goes, you put in the hard work, you reap what you sow. Yeah. This guy was a hard worker. His wife was a very hard worker as well. Yeah. So, and even the kids were hard workers. Like they were trying, obviously they're hardworking in their studies. They're doing all these things because that's what they've watched their parents make for them, right?
Yeah, they had it modeled for them. Their family was a hardworking family. Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, the family was extremely close as well.
Yes, very close. So they eventually bought a bigger house in the Mission Hill area of Vernon. And that was kind of like the bougie area.
Well, and I think it still is.
Yes,
Mission
I think
Hill
it is too.
Spa.
So like we said, this family had a very big reputation for being hard workers and for being very proud of their children. And we also discussed Carnell wanted his kids to be educated and really take advantage of what Canada had to offer them. So their eldest daughter, Jasbir, became a social worker. Rajwa became a dental hygienist. Balvinder became a pharmacist. Kalvinder was in criminology.
She was studying criminology.
Yep.
Yeah.
Harvinder was in her last year of high school. And Jaspal was in grade 9, but it said that he was very sport oriented. Like he really loved sports, all things sports, had lots of friends, right? What grade is that? Like grade 9. Yeah. I mean,
you're 14.
Yeah, right? That's all that matters to you, sports. And obviously having 5 sisters, well, not that mattered to me at that age or you, but
no.
I don't think I played one sport.
All that mattered to me when I was 14 was being a see you next Tuesday.
Well, I got kicked off the team because the coach went through my purse and found my smokes, remember?
I got kicked off in grade 8 for smoking.
Yeah, it was grade 9.
Wow.
Anyway, well,
proud moment.
Trauma bond. So they invested in a lot of investment properties. These people were very, very smart with their finances, right? They're hard workers. They're very great with what they're going to do with their investments. And as we know, I mean, we don't know, but in families that are, very successful and it goes a cycle,
it's generational, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's after education, and especially in Indian families, comes weddings, yes. Right? So you're so proud of your children. They have these beautiful careers, and now they need a beautiful family, right? It's kind of like the rite of passage into becoming your own person and going off and living your own life. So Indian weddings are very large. They're always said to be so colorful and beautiful, and there are many days. I don't know exactly how many days, but I think 5. I think there's a bunch of events.
I'm still waiting to get invited to an Indian wedding. I've never been.
Well, I mean, it's too late for me now, I guess, to marry an Indian guy, but
well, not really.
Not really. I'm not married yet. So, but so in India, in the world, half of all marriages are arranged marriages. And here we might think like, oh, that's weird, or, that's like forceful or controlling or whatever. But a lot of families are very open to it, and a lot of their children are very open to it. And hey, I'm even open to it.
And you know
One
what?
less thing I have to think about.
The thing is that there's so much research and thought and there's so much put into this. Like the whole family is doing research, choosing the best matches. With the people are allowed to say no if they're. I mean, in this culture anyway. If you meet your match and you don't like them, it's up to you to say no later.
Yeah, and if you think about how this family had a very close connection, obviously they're not going to be like, no, that's it, you're marrying this person. Some families, I'm sure, obviously with a different dynamic, you could see it going that way.
Oh, 100%.
But with them, it was like everyone's doing the research. They kind of look at, their family values, their standing in the communities, which also can be a little bit of
touchy.
Yes, because, and again, I've spoken to my friends that are Indian from their families they're like first generation Canadians. So their families are still very, traditional. They hold their culture in very high regard. It is, I mean, obviously you want to facilitate a lasting union, but you do see things kind of, if it's not working, some families, they kind of turn a blind eye to it, right? But you are able to, in this case, they wanted them to meet. They wanted them to get to know each other and see, do you like them? Can you see a future with them?
Yeah. So also in the Indian community, divorce is actually frowned upon in many instances.
Mm-hmm.
They say that although 50% of love marriages end in divorce, in arranged marriage, it's only about 1%.
Yeah. But then you have to look, right? Is that because these people are so perfect for each other, or is it because of the stigma that is surrounding divorce?
So Jazz Beer, the eldest daughter, she was matched with Baljit Saran. He went by the name Roger in the late 80s, and they moved to Abbotsford, BC. Jazz Beer, as we said, was a social worker, and she had been working for 9 years with survivors of domestic abuse. Rogers was a corrections officer at Matsqui Prison, which around here we know well.
Yep.
And by all accounts, they had a really happy marriage. They had 3 children, twins, Brittany and Justine, and another daughter, Courtney, 2 years later. So that was going really well. It was said they were really active with their children. Mm-hmm. Their kids were involved in everything. They spent a lot of time together as a family. And
that must be hard too, though, because when you do get married, especially in the Indian culture, it's like you're leaving your family, right? Yeah. Especially as the daughter. And they have 5 daughters. So their daughters now, one by one, are leaving. So it's almost like it's a celebration, but I think they're also grieving at the same time. Like, because Abbotsford and Vernon are about probably 4 hours away from each other, 3 hours away.
I guess it depends on who's
right.
driving.
So it's not like, oh, pop in whenever you can. Yeah, I guess 2 hours when I'm driving. But yeah, it's
6 if I am.
Yeah, it's very kind of pulls at your heartstrings because you are expecting and trusting that this person is going to take care of your child, right? And is going to. That's why it's great when you hear that Roger treated Jazz Beer so nicely. They had 3 daughters. They were very loving. They were always out with them. They were really taking the time to connect with their kids. And that's obviously that's been the model that's been set for Jazz Beer, right? Her parents were present,
kind and loving to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And loving to each other, which is what matters.
Go ahead.
Oh, and this is Mom's episode, by the way, so that's why she's taking the reins.
That's why I'm so controlling about it.
So Rajwa, the second eldest daughter, it was time for her to get married. So after, like I said, they were obviously very happy with how it went with Jazz Beer and Roger, that they couldn't wait to marry Rajwa. And she was what was she? Her job.
She was a dental
hygienist. So she was doing really well in her work. She was doing really well. She had great friends, and so it was time for her to get married. So they found the Chahal family. And this is what I was saying earlier. I had just a brain fart. But in the standings in the community, that's what I was going to say. They can be kind of like cliquey.
Yes.
Because when you are in India, it is like a caste system. So just by your last name, people can tell. And it's funny because I have had friends who their parents were very vocal, like, oh, you can't marry that caste.
Yeah.
And it was like, what? Like obviously it's very foreign
go to my
for
high school.
us. Yeah. So it's very foreign for us. But like we discussed in another episode that we had, remember? When Jessie tried to marry outside of her caste and marry
and her family killed her for it.
Yes, and that is something that obviously we want to avoid. But I don't think that this family, obviously they're going to carry values from India, but I don't think at the end of the day, like if their daughter had brought someone home from another caste, I don't know, but I feel like they would have been okay
they seem
with
like,
it.
Yeah, super kind.
Yeah. So Rajwa was being set up with Mark Chahal. So his name... That's his Canadian name that he had chosen for himself. And
I think his name was
Sukhwinder, yeah. And I don't think he liked that. So he went by even VJ. Was it VJ?
Mark VJ Chahal.
Yeah, Chahal. So he was a registered...
A chartered accountant.
Chartered accountant. And they actually courted each other he courted her for 2 years. So in 1994, they had their wedding. He was 28 years old and she was 24. And their wedding had about 400 people at it. Like, these things are huge.
Yeah.
So
I don't even think 400's even that big.
No. I think there's ones now that are like 500, 600, 700 people, which is crazy. But imagine having to go around and say hi to all those people. That's probably why it's 5 days. Right? Like to be able to go and say hi.
Honestly, when everything was shut down for COVID, these people had a big wedding down the street, and there was a Ferris wheel.
Oh
there.
yeah, but they're like movie stars.
They were?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Should have stopped in.
Yeah.
But it looked like they
probably would have let you.
Well, they probably wouldn't have noticed with that many people, but it was crazy.
Yeah. So they had their wedding held at the Okanagan Sikh temple. So obviously, like we said, it's sad to have to leave your family, but it's almost exciting because now you're going to start your new life with your new husband. And she was actually moving even further than her sister moved away. She was moving to the city of Burnaby. So Mark owned an apartment there, and he also had an investment property. So he came into this marriage with his own finances of $300,000, and Rajwa had $100,000
of her own savings.
Yes, like I said, these parents were setting the bar. So Rajwa realized very soon, actually the night of their wedding, that she had made a mistake, because as nice and quiet as Mark seemed to everybody else, Mark had a dark side. And the night of their wedding, Mark actually beat Rajwa up and called her a slut.
Like, how fucked up is that?
Yeah, which I'm assuming also because these people held, and again, obviously I don't judge if you're not a virgin on your wedding night, but 'cause I'm not married.
I was.
Yeah, I know you were. For which one?
The one I just got had.
Oh, yeah, true. I'm just going to fade into the background because I don't even exist. So she obviously realized right away that something was wrong. But again, because you're almost romanticizing this in your head, I'm sure she's trying to think of like some kind of excuse for why he did this. And that is something that we see in domestic violence all the time, right? It's, okay, maybe what did I do to make him mad? Or maybe he was drinking, or maybe I did do something, or maybe I am a slut. Yeah, there you go.
Maybe we both are.
Maybe. But maybe not. Anyway, so she actually saw a doctor right away, and she said that she told the doctor that she felt shame, and she would have felt even more shame if she would have left him. And again, because of the stigma of divorce and in that community. And also because her families have just invested all this time and did all their research. Obviously, they didn't do enough, but it's like their due diligence of them and trusting this man with their daughter. I think it was almost that she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want them to feel responsible.
But honestly, no one knew he was like this.
No.
So he had grown up in Canada. Everyone thought he was a great, quiet, nice guy.
He was also born in India, though.
Yes, he was. But he moved here
when
really
he was
young.
Like a toddler.
And he actually chose not to really practice his religion. He didn't wear a turban. It wasn't as important in his life as it was in the Gakhal family life.
Yeah, and he was the eldest of 3. And like we said, everybody that knew him said he was nice, quiet, responsible, reliable. He even babysat the neighbors' kids and pets. Like, that's who they got. Like, just get VJ to babysit our kids. And so he always had average grades. He was like actually very average.
Yeah, like he seems kind of like maybe even boring to me.
A little bit, yeah. So he graduated from his accounting college with his degree in 1985. And he got a job at West Coast Energy,
which is a gas and oil company.
Yeah. And it was said that he really liked to go to the nightclubs, which Vancouver has some pretty fun nightclubs. Mom, you can attest to that in those times.
Yeah, in those times they were pretty fun.
And so it's funny because one of his cousins actually said in an interview that he wasn't a troublemaker at all. And then if they would go out, if there was a fight, he would be the one that was breaking it up. So obviously there was a shift.
Yeah, so as time went on, he was constantly beating, kicking, strangling, dragging, and threatening to kill Rajwa.
Yeah, it escalated like really fast.
Really fast.
Like as soon as they got married.
So she actually earned more money than him.
That's probably where his ego is.
And I think like that's the thing. He felt like he needed to control her. He wouldn't let her talk to anyone. He would threaten to kill her. She was not allowed to even do things like take the garbage out in case she talked to someone or talk
answer
on
the door
phone.
or talk on the phone.
Yeah.
And one time he actually dragged her by her feet and she was face down and she got carpet burns all over her face.
Oh my God.
And he, again, threatened to kill her if she told anybody. So, like we said, she had a great job. Everyone loved her at her job. And it was almost like every time she came in that house, he would just like take her down a notch or two. Or three
and
or
people
four.
started to notice because like even the neighbor said she wouldn't make eye contact, but that's because she wasn't allowed to.
Yeah, the neighbor went over to introduce herself when she moved next door.
Yeah.
And apparently Rajwa just stood there looking at the floor and Mark answered every question. And it was like, okay, and this lady was, I'm assuming Caucasian because she was like, what the fuck is, like he was, you could just tell.
Yeah, like the fucking weirdo.
Yeah, and they said that he seemed really average and the family seemed really average, but
Even, yeah, we'll we don't like to post photos of him, but he
won't.
does look average.
he looks too average.
He's
He's a basic
Yeah.
bitch.
He's a basic bitch, yeah.
So obviously from the outside, you could really tell that Rajwa was unhappy because how can you fake that, So the neighbor described him as a real jerk, but
That's like such a...
yeah, like a white person thing to say.
Yeah.
That's why I said I think she's Caucasian. So Rajwa bared this marriage for 8 months.
Oh my
which
gosh.
is 8 months too long,
Oh.
9 months too long. It's just so sad that she had to go through this. But what she did is 8 months into her marriage, she filed a complaint with the RCMP, but she did not want them to do anything because she didn't want to, again,
Suffer the
essentially,
consequences of
poke
it.
the bear, right?
And sometimes, if the RCMP come and say, we are investigating a allegation of domestic abuse, and then
they leave
they're
you
like,
there with
they
him.
leave, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
But
think
in
happens?
1993, Canada invoked a new policy introduced, and it was called Violence Against Women in Relationships, where they must, even if the complainant says, I don't want you to investigate. I like this. It's one thing Canada's done that I like. I like this law, but they also
Didn't follow it.
don't follow it. So, I mean, if you can implement this and actually follow through with it, great. So you're supposed to do a complete investigation because we know in relationships, especially tumultuous ones, someone's going to get abused, then they're going to forgive them. And then they're going to be like, oh, no, I was just lying, or I just, try to make excuses so that their loved one, who is also their abuser, doesn't get in trouble.
Well, and the love bombing, like when you're in the cycle of abuse, the love, after each episode of abuse are the highest feelings of connection, love, all of that. The coming together period after that is crazy. It's what the worst part of the cycle, honestly.
Exactly. And we've discussed this multiple times. The most dangerous time for anybody in a relationship, in an abusive relationship, is when they are trying to leave that relationship.
Yeah.
So she said she didn't want anything to come of this. She just wanted it on file just in case. And really, the RCMP, regardless if the victim does not want them to investigate or not, they must. And if they see good reason to press charges, they can press charges even if the victim does not want them pressed.
I think she wasn't at a place yet either of being ready to admit to people that her marriage was failed after 8 months and that she wanted to leave. But it kept going and going.
Mm-hmm.
And very shortly after that, she was being physically, mentally, sexually abused. She finally got the courage to speak up.
Yeah, but also we see that in so many cases of domestic abuse that there's so many, it's a power imbalance, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So if you're in a violent relationship, again, you're in denial about it, right? You're led to believe they're going to change. They apologize, like you said, right? That time coming together, makeup sex, like that did not come from nowhere.
No.
I mean, I highly doubt she's having makeup sex with him because I don't even think they had ever even nice sex, it sounds like. But even sometimes, you can't afford to leave. You don't want your family to, maybe you're afraid of your family getting hurt or
Well,
getting...
and think of how much money her family spent on the wedding.
And also your religious views, right? We know that divorce is frowned upon.
It's all very, very confusing and
and the survivor plays
conflicting.
it down and is reluctant, to even do anything. So The RCMP, just based off that one complaint, should have investigated. But surprise, surprise, they didn't. So in December, actually on Christmas, December 25th, 1994, she gathered all her belongings and she fled to her sister's house in Abbotsford.
And as we know, her sister was a social worker for people that that had suffered from domestic
and
violence.
for women that were fleeing abusive relationships.
Yeah, so what a great resource for her to have. And I'm assuming because the family was so close, that two sisters that close in age.
Yeah. Well, she was there at her sister's for 3 days, and she met with the parents and drove to Mark's. So with her own parents came down, and they drove with her to Mark's house to get her belongings, and then they returned to Vernon with her. And obviously her parents are disappointed, but at the end of the day,
they supported her.
Yes. Their daughter's safety was like first and foremost the most important thing.
So after that, she filed for divorce.
Well, first, she actually said on January 5th, so this wasn't long after, once she was in Vernon, she told the Vernon RCMP now about Mark threatening her. Because Mark was now
because he was going even crazier.
He was going crazy. Yeah. Because again, like we just said, the most dangerous time for somebody is when they're trying to flee that relationship. So he now was calling the home and threatening her. So she went into the Vernon RCMP and made a file. And 4 days after that is when she filed for divorce.
And then he went even more crazy. And he was calling, leaving messages saying he was going to kill her if she didn't give him, money. He wanted all the money, basically, all of it. He didn't want her to have anything. Yeah. She went to the police, I think, twice more after that.
Yeah. So actually on January 16th, so not even that long after.
11 days.
Yeah, because she had now filed for divorce. On January 16th, the families both met. So the Chahal families and the Gakhal families met together to try to save this marriage, which no. So Rajwa's family confronted Mark about everything he had done to her. And he just straight out denied it. He got really angry and he said, like, I feel like this family is trying to humiliate our family. Like he was like getting really angry to his own family. And his family noticed that he became even more withdrawn, even quieter, even more to himself. And apparently that February, he changed a lot. And obviously he wasn't even really a big talker to begin with. So now it was like very apparent that something was wrong.
And he quit his job.
He quit his job. And his family basically said, like, you need to go to counseling because
you're fucked.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
So he did. And his therapist actually said that he was quiet, gentle, and sad and felt betrayed. And he only had 2 sessions with her. So basically you can paint a picture of yourself for somebody in 2 sessions however you want to, right? So he was also prescribed antidepressants, but nobody knows. It's not known if he took them or not. So Rajwa was actually in Vernon at this time, like we said, and she was in a women's transition house. So she got counseling, but no notes were taken. She wouldn't let them take notes because she was worried that if Mark subpoenaed them in her divorce proceedings, that he would get even more mad and read all this stuff.
Hey?
Yeah, like the hold that your abuser has on you, even after you're out of their grasp, it's so scary. So Mark claimed that Rajwa and her parents withdrew $80,000 more than they were entitled to. So obviously, again, he's getting pissed off, right? He's just getting more mad by the day, it sounds like, sitting there and stewing in his own weird little house. But
he was also buying guns.
I have lots of guns.
Yeah.
Which you would think somebody who is now going to counseling in the middle of a divorce, maybe they shouldn't be having access to
there's
these guns.
There's been reports to the police now how many?
Yeah.
There's been 3 reports to the police now.
Yeah.
And he's buying guns that were not ordinary guns that people, his reason for buying guns was that he was going to use them for target practice.
Mm-hmm. So right around this same time, because it was in 1995 when Mark suddenly quit his job, and he didn't talk to his family, his friends about anything, but his interest in guns, which he always had, really ramped up at this time. And he also started becoming obsessed with Rajwa and started to call and not even just threaten her, but leave threatening messages. You bitches are going to die, like that. Like, so obviously that is kind of like, red flag. And also at this time, because the Gakhal family, like we said, they had such a good experience with Roger's family when Jasbir married into his family, and then this horrible experience with Rajwa. But now it was time for Balwinder to get married. So they really, really did their really good research with this one, obviously, because now they were more kind of eyes open to the abuse that Rajwa had went through, right? So he, like we said, had an interest in guns, and he got a gun license before they got married, before him and Rajwa got married. He took a firearm safety course and application. He went through the application after the divorce. And with a criminal history, relationships, breaking up, you really wouldn't think that that's somebody, because that's what they look for on those forms.
And flags did show up.
Yeah.
Flags did show up when he was, so he bought a semi-automatic, a revolver, and a pump action shotgun. And each time he applied for a gun or got a new gun, there was a flag on his record, and it was disregarded.
Well, because he was part of the gun club.
Yeah.
So that was like a loophole. So they're like, you can only have this certain gun if you're going to be at a gun club with it. And then he was like, yeah, I'm at the gun club shooting target practice.
Yeah.
Like, but what are you shooting targets for, right? Obviously, some people just have a fascination with guns.
I mean,
which is
fine.
And
later the RCMP said, well, he never said he was taking it for revenge.
Yeah, like he's obviously not
I don't
gonna
think
say
anyone's
that.
going to say that.
Yeah, so RCMP, because of Rajwa's complaint, a red flag did show up.
Yeah.
So they, right after seeing the red flag just pop up, they approved the purchase of the gun for him. So even after that, he continued calling and threatening Rajwa. Rajwa complained again. He denied it when the RCMP came to his house. And a friend told a friend that he was devastated from the divorce and confronted them with allegations. He was stressed about splitting the finances, said that he basically had called his friend to discuss this. And he was really used to getting away with this stuff and had a really big victim mentality is what it seems like, because he's constantly complaining, this family betrayed me. It's like, no, it's because you beat the shit out of their daughter that they just trusted you to marry.
Ownership.
Like, well, it's victim mentality, right? You can't see your own actions are actually causing you the things that are going on in your life.
And he also was calling her family. So he found out that the youngest daughter or the third daughter was going to get married, and that set him off even more.
Yeah.
And he started calling Rajwa's father, Rajwa's sister, and that's when he was leaving the messages on Rajwa's sister's answering machine saying, you bitches are going to die. Mm-hmm. I'm spending money, but you bitches are going to die. I want double money, bitch, or all you bitches are going to die. And that was Jasbir and Roger's phone that he left that complaint on. So they also went to the city of Abbotsford police and put in a complaint and told the police that he had a number of guns.
Yep, and the calls continued because he did not care. And so in 1996, January of 1996, Rajwa submitted another complaint. And so now they were going through prep for final divorce proceedings. And in Canada, there are only 3 grounds for divorce. There's cruelty, adultery, and separation. Obviously, physical and mental cruelty is going to be what Rajwa said, and she did say that. So Mark was so mad and was telling people that he demanded that the grounds be changed to separating. Like, he was just so deep in denial. And we know that's not just a river in Egypt on this podcast.
No,
but he was so mad. He was so mad, and that it was her fault that now his money is being taken, and now this family is making him so mad. So you can really see the escalation, and it's really not painting a good photo, like a good picture. But Balwinder now, as this family is going through these divorce proceedings, now they're going to try to give a good partner to her. So obviously when Mark caught wind that was happening. It was...
Yeah, so Balvinder was supposed to get married in April, and the divorce proceedings for Rajwa and Mark's divorce proceedings were in May.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a month apart. So in his thinking, they were wrecking his life, and then they were giving someone else a great life. Mm-hmm. He was calling and saying he was going to put photocopies of his bank statements under all of the guests' windshields.
Yeah.
He was calling Karnal and saying that no wedding was going to take place. I mean, the whole family was, really worried that he was going to wreck this wedding.
Yeah.
And, there was going to be hundreds and hundreds of people there. And, they'd put so much effort and money and everything. And they'd found this family for Balvinder to marry from Toronto, a nice young man, Jatinder from Toronto. And this whole thing is happening with Mark, their previous son-in-law.
Well, and also because Rajwa now is separated from it and she's back at home with her family and, but she really had this bad feeling that he was going to try to ruin this wedding for her sister.
Yeah.
And obviously, she's getting stronger. She's seeking out the help she needs. And because abuse victims don't do anything to get that abuse. That's about the abuser. That's a projection of them, not the person who's being abused. But imagine thinking what this guy's capable of. You're about to have all your family on a very important day, couple days, celebration. Obviously, that is going to make anybody feel nervous because you know how much of a loose cannon this guy is.
Well, and people were flying in from India.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had so much preparation going on.
Yeah.
And
there were supposed to be 500 people there?
I think so.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, Mark is obsessively stewing about the wedding, and he was going to the Burnaby Gun Club daily at this point and practicing with his weapons.
Well, and Rajwa's lawyer encouraged her to get a restraining order.
I know, and she said no.
And because again, what is that going to do when he gets that restraining order? That's nothing. That's a piece of paper. This guy obviously doesn't care. It's going to do is piss him off. And I think around the time of the wedding, she was really trying to do anything to not.
Yeah, just so he would just fuck off.
So obviously we can see where this is going with the guns and the target practice and the type of guns that he's gotten. So on the day before the wedding was supposed to start, Mark drove to the Kelowna airport, rented a vehicle, and drove to Vernon, where he rented a room in the Globe Hotel, which was only 3 kilometers from the Gakhal family home.
In Sikh weddings, there are multiple day customs. So we said, I think it's 5, we figure, 5 days.
Well, I know it starts with the Mendi party, which is basically where all of the girls and everyone comes to honor the bride. And I've heard also, I don't know, obviously somebody, if you know better, can let me know. But if you're Mendi, so Mendi is henna, right? It's like
hands
it's like
and
a
feet.
stain on your hands and feet in these beautiful designs. I think it looks so cool.
It's beautiful.
And apparently it's for many different things to protect the bride. It's just for all these different reasons, which obviously I can't name right now because I don't know. But there's a lot of research went into this episode.
Well, I have, it's for wishes of happiness and prosperity.
Yeah. And it's also said if your henna shows up dark, again, someone correct me if I'm wrong, that means you'll have a good relationship with your mother-in-law.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is obviously,
that just gave me the chills.
Yeah. Mom didn't get any henna for her wedding.
No, should have.
My henna would be black because my mother-in-law loves me. So, But anyway, so that morning, Darshan and the daughters were all up early. They were all getting the house ready for the Mendi party, so because the guests were set to be arriving. And also at the house that day was Jasbir's husband, Roger, his mother, and the children, as well as the little brother, Jaspal. So Karnal headed outside to wash his new car because he was so proud to have this cute little Mazda. Again, he's worked so hard for his family, and now he's having family come from India. I'm sure it's, the third time they've come for the third wedding and everything. But again, probably going through your daughter getting a divorce and all this other stuff happening, it was probably a lot of just like, ugh, we just want this one to go well. And yeah, so he's outside washing his Mazda.
Mazda.
Oh, it's okay. Mom is Japanese now.
And it was
Mazda
around...
Japanese?
What?
Never mind. Never mind.
It was around 10:30 in the morning. And he just wanted it to get all shined up, and he's out there, with the hose spraying the driveway and super cutely.
Yeah.
He was only 50.
Yeah. But that's like, think of how hard he's worked in his life. He has 6 kids, all this stuff to show for it. Like, he should have been really proud of himself, like, and I'm sure he was. And washing his new squeaky clean Mazda and, in front of his beautiful home that he owned with his family.
With
all his family and his grandkids are inside. It was a time.
I'm sure it was a moment, for him to reflect on how great it was.
Yeah. But right at that moment, probably, of
his reflection.
Insight, a dark green minivan pulled up right in front of their home. And Mark Chahal hopped out with all of the 3 guns that he previously purchased and ambushed Carnell, his ex-father-in-law. Mark shot him in the face, killing him instantly. A neighbor witnessed it. Mark then fired into the house from room to room. First, he shot into the window of the main window. And apparently this is so sad, but the blood, because Carnell just fell where he was, and remember, he's washing his car. And so the neighbor said that the whole driveway had like blood washing all the way down, where, when you see someone wash their car and you can see the soap, I'm always like, who the fuck's washing their car? But it's usually Carlos. But it's like, where is this coming from? But imagine to see that, how horrible and shocking that would be to see somebody's blood, one of your neighbor's blood, washing down.
Well, and he looked right at the neighbor with these guns in his hand while shooting his ex-father-in-law and made complete eye contact with him. And the neighbor thought for a second he was going to kill.
Yeah. So then he walked into the house and proceeded to shoot in each room, killing everyone that was in there except for, I think, 2 kids.
Yeah, so
he shot one of the kids.
He didn't kill 3 kids, and he tried to kill Roger's mother, but she survived.
Yeah.
So he shot each person, including his ex-wife. So he shot and killed Rajwa, her mother Darshan, her sister Balvinder, her sister Kalwinder, Jaspal, the little boy, Harwinder,
and Roger.
And Jasbir was watching TV with her kids at the time, and he went into the TV room and shot her right in front of the kids. Yeah. And a stray bullet actually hit one of the girls, one of the twins, Justine, through both thighs. The other 2 did not get shot.
But imagine watching your sister get shot and your mother being killed right in front of you, and then the whole rest of your family is executed also in the same home.
And
that's
then
horrible.
At this point, this is all happening so quickly. It's within
he only
minutes.
Stopped to reload. Yeah. So I think he killed everybody within 5 minutes.
And the neighbors were calling the police immediately, obviously. Yeah. And when the police arrived, Mark was gone, but the whole family was massacred, and the children were still sitting on the couch with their mom's body.
That's so sad. So Roger was still alive when the RCMP showed up, and he told them who the shooter was. He indicated it was Mark Chahal, and like we said, in 5 minutes, Mark annihilated the whole Gakhal family. He killed 9 people. So Roger's mother, who had been shot in the face, was taken to the hospital. And obviously Justine was also taken to the hospital, where they were able to make a recovery. At that time, Mark had gone back to the Globe Hotel, where around 11 a.m., so that puts it in perspective. He arrived there at 10:30, killed 9 people, drove back to the hotel, and by 11 o'clock, the front desk staff had heard a gunshot.
So Mark had committed suicide, and he did leave a note, but it was very brief. It basically just said, it was kind of like...
I rented this car and tell my family I'm sorry.
Kind of stating facts. I rented this car, my ID's in my pocket, and tell my family that I'm sorry. Like,
and the horrible part about, I mean, this whole thing is horrible, but the groom who is set to be marrying his wife or his wife to be was actually en route to.
Yeah, he wasn't even there yet.
No. So not only did he arrive to this horrible news, it's like all these people that were traveling from all over the world were now being told that this wedding wouldn't be happening because
Everyone
whole family had
dead.
been dead. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it devastated the Sikh community, I'm sure all over the world. There were children at the schools that went to school with Kalvinder and Satpal that were, or Jaspal, sorry, that were traumatized also. The flag was flying at half-mast at their school.
Well, that's a big loss for a small community.
For sure.
It's a big loss in a big community. So, again, in Canada, this remained, like, I think it's fourth now because of a more recent massacre that has happened. But in Canada, like, look at the velocity of how big this is in Canada alone. So in a small community and in a small, you know, obviously they were very well known in their community. They ran the temple. They opened the temple. They were a big part of this community, and now they were all dead. It's horrible.
So a memorial service was held for Balwinder and Roger in Abbotsford and was attended by over 1,000 people. The little girls were now orphaned, and they moved in with their grandfather back into their family home. And their grandmother had a long recovery and many surgeries, but then she later moved into the home as well.
Yeah. So they had a really large funeral for the Gakhal family at the Okanagan Sikh Temple, and over 1,500 people attended that. So there is also every year, there is a yearly vigil for them on the day that it took place at the Okanagan Sikh Temple.
And I think it was Good Friday and like right before Vaisakhi.
Yeah. So when asked about why all of the reports by Rajwa had been made, like basically went nowhere, the RCMP had never investigated any of this stuff. And to be honest with you, I have listened to people who used to work for the RCMP, one guy who was really big in the Picton case, and the one thing he said about the RCMP is the RCMP only cares about how they look at the end of things. They don't care about anything else. So they will basically they'll gaslight the shit out of every Canadian to be like, no, well, we couldn't, how could we have known? It's like, you're the fucking police.
Well, and like some of the excuses, like, well, he said he was using the guns for target practice. He didn't say he was seeking revenge.
Yeah, and it's like, what? What
the fuck?
Yeah.
So there was a 5-day inquest done.
Yeah, but even that's not long enough.
It was just a bunch more of...
Yeah, well, because the RCMP said they only didn't contact Mark because Rajwa asked them not to. Like, the fucking law is the law. The law literally states right there, it was just brought into the law 3 years before this happened, that they really don't have a say. And it's your duty to keep the people in your, community, your civilians safe, especially from people they live with.
Well, and things happen. Like, one of the reports she did was 8 pages long. And because the person that usually was dealing with her was on a vacation, this report got put somewhere and not even read. And then when the person got back from vacation, they never even told her that it was there.
It was an 8-page statement.
Yeah, it was 8 pages long. It was the biggest
one that she had made. And if that was just put somewhere where they actually
on her
could have
desk,
seen it, yes.
And
or maybe read it and say, oh, shit. Yeah. Even if you're not the person who's regularly working the case, like, get some common sense. And obviously we hate to shame people after the fact, but it's like, not the RCMP. But it's like, you just reading that and taking that statement, I would be like, oh shit, okay, we should probably have security at these events, or we should probably go and arrest him so that we know where he is while you're having this large
at least
celebration.
Surveil him.
Yes.
And another thing that happened that they found with this inquest was that not only was the 8-page report put somewhere that I never looked at. But each time she had gone in, instead of just adding everything to one file, they kept starting a new file and then not doing anything with it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't adding up.
Yeah. Even if you remember, like the eldest sister worked in domestic violence, right? So you have to think, for her, she would probably know the thing. That's why she went to the Abbotsford. These people were afraid. These people were worried that he was going to do something like this.
And her husband was corrections.
Yeah. So the inquest ruled that the procedures for domestic abuse reporting must be updated and allocated. And there was one officer for all spousal abuse cases. And spouses or previous spouses must be notified when their spouse is applying for a gun permit. And 2 people must be references, which this still doesn't seem like enough. If domestic violence comes on as a flag, I don't think you should ever be allowed to buy a gun or a knife or duct tape or like anything. Like I feel like they should be like, oh no. Yeah. Or even drive a vehicle because people are crazy. And obviously when you are trying to leave a relationship or when someone is trying to leave an abuser, it's the most dangerous time. You think you would put these people under some kind of like watch and guard or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's
so, I mean, that was a terrible, terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And
I'm surprised a lot more people don't know about this tragedy because it is one of the largest massacres that we've ever had. It's the largest massacre we've ever had in British Columbia.
I was actually surprised too. Like even looking up documentation on it,
there's not a lot.
There isn't. No.
And obviously we apologize because we're a little rusty. We've been off for about a month and a half. But when I saw this case, remember, I was like right away. Yeah. I've known about this case for years.
Same.
But it's just very important because I think there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to people thinking that obviously certain communities. Because, yeah, obviously there's mental illness in every community. There's domestic abuse in every community. And a lot of the time people are ignorant in saying like, oh, like, you know, Indian people murder their wives all the time or Indian people murder these people, you know, or whatever. It's not just in that community. Us as people, as humans, we see it happening. It doesn't matter if you're white, brown, freaking every color, you know.
The insecurity of human makeup.
It is, exactly.
And we all need to do better.
We do, and we all need to work through our shit so that our shit doesn't work through us. Right? That's my slogan.
On that note.
On that note. Well.
Thanks for being so patient with us.
Yeah, next time we'll have brain cells. So, and actually the next episode we're going to do is a very special one. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks.
I'm just getting back in 2 weeks, so 2 weeks and a half.
We'll see you in 3 weeks because Mom's going on a little bit of a longer hiatus. So with that, thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you next time. So this has been Murder with My Mother, the true crime podcast where I talk murder with my mother. Bye.